Welcome back to World Class Retrospective, Episode 4. My name's Austin Skinner, and tonight, on the exciting edition of World Class Championship Wrestling Television, it is February 20th, and we have a replay of perhaps the best match that we've seen on television so far in World Class, Kerry Von Erich versus the Dynamite Great Kabuki. And that was previously aired on January 9th's episode. Also, in one-on-one action tonight, we have Madril taking on Captain Frank Dusek, and much, much more. Without further ado, Episode 4 starts now. Welcome in again to the 4th episode of World Class Retrospective. Again, down below, you will see our Twitter handle, /X. I hate that I have to keep saying that, but, people call it different things, so that's what I have to keep saying. Either way, whatever you call it, we are at World Class Retro. Also, for those of you on YouTube and not on Twitter /X, forget what I just said, but make sure you're subscribed to us here on YouTube. Give the video a thumbs up. Tell your friends. Not too many people are covering World Class in depth week by week, match by match. So if that is something that you like, or maybe your friends like, share the love. It's always appreciated. Now, as I said at the top of the card, at the top of the show, really, it's the 20th of February. Last episode, January was pretty much chopped up. I mean, we went from January 9th to almost a month later, February 6th, and now here we are over 2 weeks at February 20th. So again, I think we're seeing another case of some Fort Worth stuff being taped and then taped over. So we're kind of jumping around here. To think that we're already almost 3 months into 1982 and we only have 4 episodes that we've covered is a little concerning. I will say, though, that after the spring, really, of 1982, weekly episodes are pretty consistent, meaning that we won't be skipping, 2-3 weeks in between aired shows. So you have that to look forward to. Speaking of things to look forward to, let's run down tonight's card. First up, we have Carlos Zapata versus Tony Torres. Second match, Great Kabuki versus Richard Blood. Third match of the night, Great Kabuki versus Kerry Von Erich. And again, this is the encore presentation from January 9th. Fourth up, Ivan Putski versus Jack Taylor. And in your main event, as I mentioned, Madril takes on Captain Frank Dusek. So that's what we kind of have coming up here, guys. Is it common for replays to happen on world-class television? Yes. As a matter of fact, viewing audiences, sometimes that was the only time that they'd see Star Wars matches. So world-class Star Wars specials, they would have sometimes in Texas stadiums, sometimes in Reunion Arena. Just depended. But they would very commonly kind of air those spread out. So say, they'd have a super show in Texas Stadium. Well, for the following 3 weeks on television, they would chop that super show up and air it over 3 weeks. So will there be episodes of World Class that we come across that is literally one match for the whole episode? Yes. Will we see more replays? Yes. It's just commonplace here in 1982. So once we get there, I'll kindly refer to you, to check out the previous episodes. We won't do really a breakdown of that. I mean, it's a replay. It's stuff we've seen already. If you're interested, go back, read the review on WrestlingRecaps.com, or of course, check out the January 9th episode here on World Class Retrospective YouTube channel. Either way, whatever you prefer. If you want to read it, it's there. If you want to watch it, it's there. Let's get into our breakdown, shall we? Gene Goodson welcomed us in, and he was joined tonight by David Von Erich. This is the first time that we've seen David Von Erich on TV here in 1982 for World Class. He is going to become a very important person moving forward. So I just wanted to kind of make a special note of his appearance tonight. I don't really understand the whole round robin thing at commentary. I mean, we've already had, 4 weeks of television, 4 different color commentators. I'm hoping that they slowly kind of nail down a more permanent solution to this, as, more oftentimes than not, the color commentator guy is actively a wrestler and doesn't have too much to add at the commentary booth. Unless you're Gary Hart or somebody of that caliber, you kind of have no business being on a microphone for more than a promo, let alone, the whole episode of television. Just my 2 cents. Let's get into the first match here. Again, that is Carlos Zapata versus Tony Torres. Tony Torres is a name that you will not see too many more times here in 1982. Another kind of enhancement guy, local guy, I would think, to World Class, kind of helping him out. So these two were scheduled to lock up in a singles match with a 10-minute time limit. I do like Zapata more and more, and I'm not sure why. Every time I see him, I think a solid hand for the undercard. And I will admit, he does look like Fidel Castro, which I find kind of funny. These two relied heavily on strikes for the most part of the beginning of the match. Carlos even resulted in biting Tony Torres at one point. David called that uncalled for, so he did pepper in a little bit of character there, if you want to call it that. Torres nearly surprised Zapata with a small package out of nowhere. He was able to flurry some offense following this. He also peppered in some offense that was kind of teetering on maybe a little dirty, which caught me off guard. But Zapata put Torres away with a swinging neckbreaker. I would say it was a solid effort on both part for my estimation. And surprisingly, according to my written review, I gave it a full 1.5 stars in my book. There you go. How about a pretty solid spotlight match? And one for somebody who I would say isn't too heavily featured in World Class consistently. Carlos Zapata, I mean. Nonetheless, check it out. I enjoyed it. Short, simple, to the point, did what it needed to do. We're on to the next thing, which was an interview. Of course, our one and only Gene Goodson was standing by again with the Von Erich boys, being Kevin and Kerry. Like I stated in the last couple of weeks, we've nearly heard from Kevin and Kerry every single week at least once. So I don't think we're going to learn too much new information with this interview, but who knows? I could be totally wrong. I'll leave it up to Gene to talk to the boys, and we'll come out on the other end and see what they say. Gene, take it away.
It is really true. Right there in the comfort of your own home, you see the world's greatest athletes right here on World Class Championship Wrestling. And one of the greatest that I've ever known, and really he's got his credentials to prove it, here is Kevin Von Erich.
Thank you, Gene. I appreciate the compliment, but let me say, folks, we're looking forward to coming to your town. We wrestle quite a bit. We're the Von Erich brothers, and I guess you could say that we kind of like the challenge of going into new spots, new places, and meeting new people. You know, this business is probably one of the best in the world, meeting new young ladies and pretty girls all over the place. It seems like every town has a different flock, and so we'll be coming to your town pretty soon, be looking for us, and when we're there, come out to the matches and check us out. You know, I guess, Gene, you could say that we like challenges. One of our challenges is to rid this building, this business, of the kind of kind of people like Hart and his men. There's no place in this business. There's no room for them, and that would be our challenge, would be to get rid of people like that.
Kevin Von Erich, and throwing the challenge out once again, and there is really getting to be a lot of bad blood there, and I don't know what to do about it, but it's just that way, and so just stay tuned and watch it develop, because it's something else. And now here's Kerry Von Erich.
Hey, Gene, I just want to. There's a girl named Margaret. Margaret Loveletter's her name, and she wrote me a letter, and my whole family a letter, telling us how they loved World Class Championship Wrestling, how we had the finest athletes, the finest wrestlers, I guess the finest talent than anywhere else in the world. But she's stating how it's the best in America. She says she's lived in 5 or 6 different states, and she loves what we're doing. And you know, these kind of letters make us real proud, and they make us feel good. And I just want to thank Margaret for it. And from the Von Erich family to you, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kerry. Yes, people, comments, letters, phone calls, and we thank you very much for that, because we believe World Class Championship Wrestling is the greatest.
There you go. That was your staple Kevin and Kerry Von Erich interview for this week. I must admit, Kerry kind of came off stronger on the stick here tonight. And maybe you don't agree, but watching kind of concurrently here in a row, compared to his last couple outings on the microphone, I do feel like this one was a little bit better, or at least a step in the right direction. Thank God. We couldn't go too much further the other way. When they're focused and things are kept short, I think that I would say most of the Von Erichs, but definitely Kevin and Kerry, tend to shine. You know, when they're straight up, talking from the heart, and they're given about a minute to summarize how they're feeling. That's about as good as it gets. So we'll see moving forward if we continue to improve or regress. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. The jury is still out on that, let's say. Going into our second match of the evening, it was the Great Kabuki versus Richard Blood. Richard Blood, another name that you probably won't hear too often here on World Class Television, but he's here tonight, and he might have bit off more than he could chew with the Great Kabuki, but we'll see. These guys were set to square off in a singles match, 10-minute time limit, of course. David, on commentary, said that he was looking forward to seeing Kabuki, which, same here, David, I always am. That withstanding, Blood went right to work after Kabuki with a set of flying head scissors and some solid arm drags in offense. Kabuki, though, hit a sidekick to stop the momentum dead, and it was him who took control. Kabuki laid more strikes in and held Blood in a couple of muscle holds. We love those at this time. They're very exciting. Good stuff. Kabuki then set a flurry in the corner and dropped from the second rope a few times with a few throat thrusts. Kabuki then got the 3 count after 3 consecutive throat thrusts, and we got a mouth foaming aftermath from Richard Blood following the bell. So not only did Kabuki really work that throat over, boys and girls, depending on who's watching, but we even got the oversell of foaming at the mouth from Richard Blood. Now, if that's not devastating, I don't know what is. If that doesn't make you scared of the Great Kabuki, if you're not already, which if you're sane, you probably are, that cements it, right? So he's making people foam at the mouth after his matches with him. Another solid showing here for Kabuki. He's no nonsense. I gave this one a full star as well. It was a solid squash match. Can't give squash matches too much more than that. I did, mentioning the first match of the evening, I gave it more than a star because it was competitive, and I think both guys worked hard. Here, yeah, Richard Blood maybe sold his ass off, but Kabuki did most of the heavy lifting. It was about Kabuki, and a star is a good squash match, so nothing to wag your finger at here for this one. Going into our recap for the Great Kabuki versus Kerry Von Erich, that's what was featured next. It's disappointing to me that we're not getting fresh content every week, And I don't want to spread that to you guys because it happens, but it doesn't happen all the time. So maybe, if you weren't watching January 9th's episode, this would have been a really nice treat for you here on February 20th. We have seen it. I'm not going to go over it again. I rated it 2 stars during the viewing. It's the best match we've seen so far on World Class Television. I will say again, though, if you haven't seen this match or you have no knowledge of 1982 World Class Championship Wrestling, go back and watch it. What do you got better to do? You're watching this? Go watch that. Otherwise, we're going to move on. Going into our third official live contest featured on tonight's card, it was Ivan Putski taking on Jack Taylor. This match was scheduled for a 10-minute time limit. One fell to a finish. And I'll tell you, Ivan Putski is over. We did get an update on Richard Blood early in this match here, and he was reported to have a cracked sternum, compliments of the Great Kabuki, for their match. Do I believe it? Not really, but hey, we'll go with it. Cracked sternum, this is a huge deal. Kabuki's a very dangerous man. So look out, Kevin, Kerry, and Bundy. All of you. Because he can hurt you. And he can hurt your sternum too. Back to this match here, though. Jack Taylor surprised Ivan Putski with a few good shots before bailing to the floor. Putski got fired up and started rifling strikes and a few tosses around the ring. Taylor got dropped with a running double axe handle on an Irish whip. The crowd was definitely into it, as that double axe handle was what finished this match. Again, in my estimation, nothing really happened here. I didn't really get the whole Ivan Putski thing. Maybe he's a bigger deal somewhere else and I just don't know about it. But in this context for World Class, I wasn't super excited, so I gave it a half a star. Dud rating for me. If you're a big Ivan Putski person, you might love this match and it might be a 5-star. I'm willing to bet a decent amount of money that that's not the case, but who am I to judge Ivan Putski? I'm just a guy with like 10 subscribers on YouTube. So don't even worry about it. We'll just go to the next thing. And that was another interview. Standing by with Gene Goodson, our very own Gene Goodson, is a man who recently did color commentary, Mr. Arman Hussein, and he is representing H&H Limited. He's in association with Gary Hart, Great Kabuki, kind of all the bad guys. Arman Hussein, as I've mentioned on prior episodes, is a constant nagging kind of fly around the Von Erichs and around World Class in general. He, as I've stated again previously, I enjoy him more so at ringside rather than in the ring. So I will let him do his own talking here. Gene, Arman, the floor is yours.
I'd like to introduce you to the African national champion, half of the American tag team champion. Here is the Honorable Arman Hussein.
Thank you. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. Why is World Class Championship Wrestling the most talked about promotion in the world today? Because it's one of the most prestigious promotion in the world today. A promotion that goes out and brings you top professional wrestlers as the Great Kabuki, the Malaysian champion, and the honorable, the incomparable Mr. Gary Hart and myself, Hussein. Now, I want to say this now to all of the fans out there. Whenever you see championship wrestling, World Class Championship Wrestling that is, we want you to come out and patronize us because we'll bring you the best in professional wrestling. Not saying it because I'm affiliated, but that's a fact.
Thank you, Hussein. Yes, when World Class Championship Wrestling is in your area, don't miss it. It is the finest professional sport seen by more people where people are involved than any other sport in the world. You can believe it. Here is manager Gary Hart.
I'd like to say a few things about a couple of people by the name of Von Erich. Anytime I hear the name of Von Erich, I think of my bald head, and I think of the reason my head is shaved. Because we lost a match one time when I was managing another guy. Not Kabuki, but another guy. And I put up my hair and I lost my hair. That's why you see my head is shaved the way it is today. But before I'm through in professional wrestling, the three Von Erichs that are the heirs to the throne, I mean Kerry, I mean Kevin, and I mean David, and the king himself is Fritz. I will see to it personally that the Great Kabuki destroys the House of Von Erich once and for all, and I don't make idle threats.
Manager Gary Hart. Stay tuned for more.
I will say I don't feel like Arman Hussein is as strong as Gary Hart is on the microphone. I don't think I'm out of line saying that, and I think most people would agree with that. But I always pay attention when he's talking, so that's for sure. You know, doesn't take anything away from Arman Hussein. There's not too many guys in 1982 that can captivate you like a Gary Hart. So I think it's a pretty strong heel pairing. I mean, H&H Limited with, being led by Hart and Hussein. Other than the Von Erichs, there's really no competition. I mean, those are two heavy hitters as far as mouthpieces, as far as credibility at ringside. Those are the guys, if you're a bad guy, those are the guys you want on your side. So I'm excited to watch H&H here through 1982. I think they provide the best foils to any of the good guys throughout the year. And we'll see that. I mean, they go through their ups and downs, just like any, stable, I guess you would call them, does. But we'll talk about that as it happens. Going into our main event of the evening. Al Madril, one of my faves, taking on probably my least fave, Captain Frank Dusek. These two were set to meet here in a singles match with a 10-minute time limit. Odd for the main event, only getting 10 minutes, but, it is what it is. Dusek was accompanied by Wild Bill Irwin here. So perhaps these guys are kind of joining forces. I hope not, because, I really like Wild Bill Irwin, and I really don't like Captain Frank Dusek. But with Dusek maybe at ringside, kind of helping be the mouthpiece, that wouldn't be horrible. Wild Bill isn't great on the microphone, so could he use some help? Sure. As long as it keeps Captain Frank Dusek out of the ring, I'm kind of for it. So we'll see what happens as things progress here with those two. For the match, though, Al Madril was ready for a battle as the former Texas heavyweight champion, which he is at this time. A feeling out process was underway as we lost lights in the arena. They were lowered twice for some reason. I'm not sure if it was like a power situation or a signal that they'd be off the air soon. So, fucking make it quick, boys. I don't know. I don't know what that was about, but that happened. Dusek was sent to the floor by Madril, but he was back in pretty quick. Madril kept Dusek on the mat with a headlock. Suddenly, following an Irish whip, Madril collapsed from an apparent knee injury. After a few moments, the officials called for the bell due to this injury. David Von Erich flew from the commentary desk down to the ring when Bill Irwin entered to do some extra damage. Frank Dusek and Bill Irwin were sent to the floor quickly, thanks to David Von Erich, though, so he kind of fought him off, sent him to the floor. The two heels regrouped on the outside, and David removed his big belt to keep them on the floor. So he had it's Texas. He's got this huge leather belt with a big old buckle on it, kind of took it off. He's going to use it as a weapon. He's going to even the odds here because Madril's down, so he needs backup. David, though, instead of swinging the belt or doing anything else, he tended to Al Madril and helped officials get him to the back. For the match itself, my opinion on it, I thought the finish was really lame. I don't know if it's a shoot or not as far as the injury. I'm hoping not because I love Al Madril. I think he's arguably the biggest good guy in the company besides the Von Erichs. So hopefully he's not shelved because that would really suck. And again, I feel like these guys didn't get enough to really get going as far as time. So between either being cut short or a legitimate injury here, I did rate this main event a half a star. Dud rating from me. I hate to do it to Al Madril because, like I said, I'm a fan. But I just hope that Al Madril will live to fight another day. Wrapping up the card here tonight, Gene Goodson and David Von Erich closed out the show. They wish they had more time in this hour because the hour went quick. Although they plan on, in the weeks to come, bringing the fans some more great, exciting action. And that concluded our broadcast. So, going back through for your ratings for tonight's episode. Again, Carlos Zapata versus Tony Torres, I gave a 1.5. Solid squash match there. Match number 2, Great Kabuki versus Richard Blood. The selling was solid by Blood. Nice little squash match. Star rating. Technically, the third match on the card, Great Kabuki versus Kerry Von Erich, which again was a replay, I had rated 2 stars. Next on the card, Ivan Putski versus Jack Taylor. I gave that a dud, 0.5 star rating. And your main event, one more time, Al Madril versus Captain Frank Dusek. Dud, 0.5 star. So, as far as live wrestling matches, well, live taped wrestling matches go, relatively weak outings here for the 4 matches and 5th being taped from a prior episode. As just kind of a final wrap up, besides, the match that we got as a replay tonight, it wasn't a super great show. The first 2 matches started off solid, for squash matches, but things went downhill from there pretty quickly. You could tell most, if not all, of the heat in this territory at this time is between the Von Erichs and Gary Hart's man, the Great Kabuki. I'm pretty bummed again that there's a week of television lost to time and space during this one here. Well, a couple weeks worth of television, right? Because going from the 6th to the 20th, I would guess there's maybe 2 in between there. And who knows what could have been on that. We could have got Flair's Steamboat on one of them. Most definitely not, but we could have. You never know. It is what it is. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what's in store for us next week because, as a reminder, Gene Goodson gave us nothing. I swear they ran out of time for this one. To me, as far as the week goes, I do feel like it was maybe them kind of settling in. Like, okay, we know what the television's going to be. We know who we're going to feature. We know who we're going to focus on. This is world-class television. And that's what it felt like. It felt like kind of finally, they're comfortable. They're in their seat. They have a direction. And then they're starting the train. We're going that way. So we'll see. I'm excited for next week. Regardless of the action being lackluster, I'm always excited to see what they do next because this is stuff I haven't seen. This is stuff that I'm watching as if it was aired the first time ever. Am I a little naive in going in week after week? Blind? Probably, right? But maybe you guys are too. So that's the special part about this. This is one thing that I will give Peacock the credit for. It allows us, the fans, to rediscover or discover for the first time what was so special about wrestling territories of the 1980s. And I argue all the time that World Class Championship Wrestling was the top of the heap. I mean, these guys reached heights that really no other territory were able to accomplish. So without hyping things up too much more, we'll see what happens next week. Until then, guys, thanks for tuning in. Follow us on Twitter/X. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't already. And we'll see you guys on Friday, next Friday. Thanks.